Hey everybody, my name is Minda Hart, your host of Secure the Seat Live. Welcome back to another edition. If it's your first time watching us, welcome. You're already part of the squad. If you rock with us every Monday here on LinkedIn Live, then welcome back. Let us know how your weekend was. We hope you did something that brought you joy, because there's so much going on in the world and we got to find those little slivers of joy wherever we can get it. So drop it in the chat. Let us know how your weekend was, how you're doing today. You could be anywhere on the internet and you're here with us, so we don't take that lightly, especially now that things have opened up. But hopefully you still find content that you enjoy and just community that we've created here, and that's why you keep showing up. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I know primarily many of you watch us on LinkedIn Live, but for those who watch us on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube, we appreciate you as well. So make sure that you continue to engage in the chat. We have no show without you, and so again, thank you, thank you, thank you. Today, I'm excited for our conversation because, not every guest do I know that I have on this show. We become fast friends, but with Dolly, I met her many years ago. And fun fact, when the memo came out, we met a couple weeks before, and she gave me my first pen to use to sign books. And I hold that so dear to my heart because, she was already at the top of her game, and she took time to meet with me and give me advice. And she's always been just in my corner, and it does me so much pleasure and honor to talk to you and introduce those who may not be familiar with her work. But she is a Harvard educated, award-winning social psychologist at NYU Stern School of Business. And, I'm just an adjunct at NYU Wagner, and I had to rep today to wear wear the sweatshirt. But she is an expert in unconscious bias and unethical behavior of ordinary good people. And she has a new book out, A More Just Future, my apologies. And I'm just so excited for us to talk about it because this book is so relevant to the things that are going on inside and outside the workplace. And so without further ado, I'm going to bring my friend Dalia up. How are you?
I'm good, Minda. What a nice introduction. And I had forgotten about the pen. I must have had a sense that you would be using that pen a lot. And I'd like to say I was right. Look at you.
You were right. I'm going to have some downtime to see what you see in my future. What else do I
need? Maybe some rest. Maybe a little bit of rest.
I definitely need a lot of that. But
I know.
For those who may not know about you, tell us a little bit more about your work. I just gave a little Sam's Club sample.
Yeah, I love that little Sam's Club sample. Yeah, thank you. So I started out actually in the corporate world. I have an MBA and worked in banking and consulting and publishing until I was in my mid-30s. And then I had this light bulb moment that I should have been an academic. I should have been a professor. And so I started overish, with a PhD and studied organizational behavior and social psychology is what my doctorate is in. And my particular area of interest is, as you said, the psychology of good people, ways in which when people are well-intended, people like me, I'm speaking about myself, we sometimes still don't realize ways in which we fall short of our own aspirations of being a good person, or ways in which we might even do harm without realizing it. And I've studied that now over the last 20 years in my work, and I have the opportunity to also teach in a business school where I teach MBA students topics around management, leadership, negotiations, other sort of soft skill, for lack of a better word, subjects.
I love it. And this isn't your first rodeo. So tell us just a little bit about your first book too.
Yeah. My first book was called The Person You Mean to Be, How Good People Fight Bias. I think there's a theme with kind of my research in my books, which is I basically write about and study and research the things that I'm grappling with in my own life. So in The Person You Mean to Be, I was thinking about the fact that intellectually I have had expertise as a scholar of unconscious bias, but as a human being and interpersonally, I was still seeing myself time and time again, do things like mistake two Black male students for each other who look nothing alike and call them by the wrong name, or I had a teaching assistant track who I was calling on in class when lots of hands were up, and who pointed out that I was calling on men disproportionately more than women and interrupting women disproportionately more than men. So these are just a few examples of, unfortunately, many I could give, and that I think a lot of us could give, of ways in which I'm not always the person I mean to be. And so I wanted to offer a bit of a toolkit on how to get better. And so the theme of That Person You Mean to Be, that book, my first book, is if we cling to the idea of being a good person, that's a brittle either you are a good person or you're not idea, when we have moments like the ones I just described, we will not learn from them. We will simply try to defend ourselves, which just makes things worse. I propose that instead of trying to be a good person, we want to be a goodish person, which is a person who's a work in progress, always getting better. So when those moments happen, we'll be better at noticing them and learning from them.
I'm looking for my tambourine because you said all these
Famous tambourine. I love it. It came out early.
It came out early. It just hit. I mean, because there's so much in that. But if you haven't read Dolly's first book, make sure you get it. But right now we're celebrating the release of your newest book, and we're dropping the link in the chat so people can go ahead and just scoop that up for you and a friend. Buy it for everyone you know, because it's so important. But tell us why you wrote this book. So you wrote your first book. Why this one?
Yeah. So once again, it seems like all my research is me search. In this book, I was trying to, okay, so just straight talk. I'm a mother of two, and I had, when my kids were little, I was reading to them every night. We were very into reading series of books, so that we could kind of live with it for a while. And so when they were 6 and 7, I read the whole Little House on the Prairie series to them. I had read it when I was kids. I don't think I ever made it through the whole series, but I had read at least a couple of them when I was a kid. I love the TV show. I mean, this is like millions of people. Like, I really loved this family. Laura Ingalls Wilder, who wrote the books, these were the true stories of her family growing up in the late 1800s. And as the sort of early sort of settlers, as they saw themselves, were building homes on the prairie and in the Midwest of the United States. And so after we finished reading the whole series, which took an entire year, we decided, my husband and I, that we would go on vacation and we would take our kids to these real places, because these were real people that felt like they were part of our family. And we would go see the prairie and see the house. And we were very smug about this educational, affordable vacation we had planned for our children. Our kids were so into it. They wore prairie dresses every day. I'm not lying. I mean, the bonnet, the whole thing. And I remember while we were there having a few moments where I was like, because you're really there, right? Like with the big sky and the big land. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure this was Native American land. Like, I remember having thoughts like that. And then I distinctly remember just being like, and we're putting that thought away. Like, I don't know what to do with that thought. I don't know how to understand it or think about it. Definitely don't know how to explain it to my kids. So I just didn't, quite frankly. So here I'd had a whole year of reading them these books and then a whole vacation, and I just didn't deal with it. And as years passed since then, I had this realization as I sort of, fell into learning a little more of just what a disservice I had done my kids, that I had actually given them a lot I was so proud that they were learning, but what I'd really done is set them up for a lot of future unlearning. They were going to have to deal with the debt that I'd imposed on them, or that they would inherit from me, of what I didn't understand and what I didn't know how to grapple with, they would now have to grapple with. And it's particularly the emotions that come up when you realize the narratives and knowledge that you've been holding your whole life, that you've been taught, are not the full story, that they're a whitewashed story that needs to be decolonized. And I didn't know how to deal with those emotions. So I got very into this story, Minda. I'm sorry. I was just like, you're like a therapist. I'm like telling you this whole thing.
Like, tell me more.
I feel like I should. But this book came from those emotions that I didn't know how to deal with, and then looking around to see maybe others have figured this out or written about it in a way that I could learn from. And I couldn't quite find like an accessible guide. I found a lot of research in the field of social sciences and social psychology. So what I decided to do was similar with the first book, was curate that science out of the dusty journals, pair it with some interviews of real world examples, with case studies, and then write the guidebook that I feel I can benefit from and offer tools to others as well.
I love that so much. I'm halfway through the book and I'm loving it so much. And
Thank you.
it does talk a lot about history, as you mentioned. And I'm curious because we'll have some history buffs out there and those sorts of
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
By trade, you're not a historian, but you have so many. You sit at so many intersections. I value your work. But why should someone read this? But I really love just
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, I want to be super clear that I'm not a historian. Thank you for sharing that with your audience, because I'm not even a history buff, if I'm totally honest. I don't even know if I get the History Channel. I was a mediocre history student growing up. So this isn't about, it's about the emotions. It's about our relationship with the past. I'm a psychologist, so that's very much stuff I think about, relationships and emotions. Um, and it turns out understanding the past is so important to understanding the present. And so in the book, I do share some things that I have been learning that I didn't know. I was sort of, today years old when I learned, X, Y, and Z. So I do share that, but I want to be clear that this book is not coming from a place of expertise around history. It's coming from a place of love of country, of loving a country with a broken heart, loving a country that in some ways is so extraordinary, and in some ways is so brutal in its history, and trying to understand how those two things fit together.
What I love about this book is the humanity, right? And I think that is the part that when people do talk about history, we tend to forget, right? It can be yes and even as I was hearing you talk about Little House on the Prairie, another fun fact, which it hit in a different kind of way for me, is that growing up in my house, my parents at a certain particular time were very strict on what we could watch, and at one
Mm-hmm.
one of the only things could watch was Little House on the Prairie. So I resonate with that story.
Right. I don't know if we were watching at the same time, but I remember being Monday nights at 8. Like that was it. Yeah.
Yeah, so I do remember that very, very well. But I'm glad that you were able to, I think, being so self-aware, right? You're a good person, but we
Mhm.
all grapple, right, with these different things. And some of us choose not to. And so I like that you're sharing this. I mean, the book is so good. Listen, let me show you again what it looks like. So when you go to where you like to buy your books, we're going to drop the link in the chat so that you can go ahead and get this, because this is just an important book to have. There's so many questions I want to ask you, Dolly, but I'm going to try to speed through in our fast and furious time. But in your book, you use this parental reminder, dress for the weather. What does
Yeah.
that mean in the terms of history?
Absolutely. So one of the first tools I offer in the book is to dress for the weather. Just like we know, if you go out for an outing and you don't bring the right number of layers or the umbrella or whatever, the sunblock, you end up having a miserable time. Not because the outing was bad, but because you didn't know what to expect and didn't prepare for it. And the same is true for the journey of time travel. If we're going to look at history and do it in an honest way, not just a nostalgic, sentimental way. There's lots of value to nostalgia, but that isn't history, that's nostalgia. If we're going to look at it from the standpoint of, for example, if we're going to look at Little House on the Prairie and not only look at it from the standpoint of the Ingalls family, hardworking and wonderful people as they were, but also the people they displaced, also the genocide that was taking place around them, also the slavery that was spread throughout the country at that point. If we're going to look at all of those perspectives, some emotions are going to come up. And dressing for the weather means expecting that, not being surprised when we feel the discomfort, and not quitting. When it starts raining, you just you put on the appropriate poncho and you keep going. And so that's what dressing for the weather is. How can we emotionally prepare for this journey?
Ooh, we all need to be dressing for the weather every single day,
Every
because
single
it changes. It changes on you. Changes on you. Well, I guess basically what you're kind of talking about is embracing these paradoxes, right? Can you give an example of how to do this?
Sure. this is where the research is so helpful. There's some great research by Wendy Smith, Marianne Lewis, and other scholars on what's called the paradox mindset. Paradox mindset is simply telling your brain to override its reflexes to smooth everything out, make everything fit neatly. It like our brains like consistency and coherence. If a picture is crooked, that instinct you have to kind of just like fix it on the wall. But you can also tell your brain like it's okay if every piece doesn't fit. And so a paradox mindset, and you referred earlier to both and, it's saying that two conflicting things can be true. It is true that our forefathers of the United States of America overcame extraordinary odds, had an extraordinary vision, built extraordinary institutions and documents. That's true. It is also true that while they were doing that, many of them were enslaving human beings. They were separating families. They were taking babies from mothers. That is also true. Paradox mindset means that rather than saying, I can't sit with both of those, so I'm going to have to back burner one of the truths, it's to say that I'm going to allow both to be true. And what I have found is it's weirdly liberating to allow both things to be true, to not have to solve that problem of were they good or were they bad. I don't know what labels to put on it, but they were both and so one of the things I've started to do is almost like paradox spotting. Like if you're learning about something in history and you're not seeing a paradox, chances are you haven't gone deep enough, because there's always paradox. People are complicated.
It is what it is.
It is what it is.
And even in the workplace, I'm heavy on just like workplace, like culture. And I think a lot of people, when you say, oh, that's just Jim being Jim. Okay, well, two things can be true, right? Jim could be a nice guy, but he also could be harming some of the people he works with, right? We're living in two different situations, right? But both exist.
Yes, so well said. Exactly. And Jim can get better. That's what Goodish is all about, is like, what would it look like for Jim to be better today than he was yesterday? Not just in his job, where I bet he is better today than he was yesterday, but also in the culture he creates and how he treats people, in his understanding about how his jokes land, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes, the Goodish, right? We can get better. Mm-hmm. It's almost like we say, well, the forefathers, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, okay, yes, and we can all get better because now we have this framework, right, around what is going on. Everybody, please make sure you get a more just future. Get it in your cart today. The last question, again, I don't get to see Dolly that much, so I wish I could keep her and just hold her here for like all day and pick your brain. But what we see in culture, TV, media right now is still really heavy on critical race theory. People are still feeling some kind of way about it. But you compare it to a pomegranate. Can you explain?
I do. Well, I mean, I'm an academic. Critical race theory came from legal scholars, a very specific group of academics. It meant a very specific thing. And what I was offering with the pomegranate metaphor was simply to say what's happened is we've taken something, a specific word that meant a specific thing, like pomegranate, that word meaning a very specific fruit, and instead we've made that word mean all food, as if pomegranate was every food that exists. If you went to a restaurant, the menu would just list 49 versions of pomegranate, and you would order it and have no idea what was coming because everything was called pomegranate. And as a result, we have no way of actually talking about food or ordering food because we don't know what we're talking about. And that's what's happened, I believe, with the term critical race theory. It meant something very specific. It still does, but it's being used in other ways. And it's gotten to where I'm not even sure we can have a legitimate disagreement because we don't know what we're talking about. We're arguing over pomegranates and not actual specific foods.
That's a really good way to look at it. And I think that kind of pomegranate theory happens a lot in the workplace, right? We're talking about the one thing, but now it's blown up and now we can't even get back to center.
Exactly. And then we all know those spirals, right? Relationally, like then it goes from being about the thing to now it's the relationship, and now we've lost trust, and there we go.
I'm so excited for this book to be out in the world. Is there any final things that you just want to share with our viewers, those who are watching us live and those who will watch the replay, just about maybe something else to kind of think about as they're picking up and going to start reading this new book?
Oh, sure. Thank you. One of the concepts that I keep thinking about is the concept I offer of being a gritty patriot. This borrows the work of psychologist Angela Duckworth on grit that a lot of us have heard of, and it's defined as passion and perseverance in pursuit of a meaningful long-term goal. And what I offer is, what if we thought of patriotism, of love of country, as a meaningful long-term goal? That we have passion and perseverance. We're not entitled to it. Some of us love our country so deeply that we can't seem to see its flaws. And some of us have lost that love for our country and we can't seem to see the benefit. Why do people keep coming here? What if there's some other way of loving our country, which is one where we just actively work towards it with grit, like a gritty patriot? And that sort of puts us in a position of agency around trying to make the things that aren't working better in partnership with others, as opposed to passively looking at a country and either loving it or hating it without being able to see a way to engage with it. So I found the gritty patriot idea to be motivating for me.
I like that. I like that concept too. And it helps us get back to a more just future, right? Again, seeing things in that
Exactly.
perspective. And I love that because even for me, I have a good friend who always jokes about it. When she first met me, I used to always have like an American flag, something with me, like
Yeah.
either a purse or a scarf, or I would incorporate something. And I had such this like, man, if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere type of
Yeah.
stance. And when certain things started happening, over the last few years, I was like, I didn't really want to wear my American flag. Not that I didn't love the country.
Yeah,
Still,
yeah.
as James Baldwin says, I have the right to critique her, even though that's the only country I know. But now I'm able, through your kind of paradox lens, be able to say, I
Yeah.
still have a love. I still can show up and still critique the country for a more just future, right?
That's so well said. I just love how you said that. And the fact that you're wearing the NYU sweatshirt, I think I could picture you with that flag.
Yes. For better or worse, yes. But I love this book so much. I'm so proud of you. Thank you for writing it. Thank you for sharing your heart with us and helping us just be goodish, right? I think we all can lean into that. We're at time for bonus questions. And Dolly, I am a lover of grits and rap lyrics. Do you eat grits?
I've had grits. It's not my regular go-to.
Okay. When you've had them, how did you eat them? I have to ask.
Yeah, I remember the whole debate. I honestly, I don't even remember. I'm this and the rap music. I fall short for sure. I've listened to your show and often wondered how I would answer those questions. So.
Well, I'm better. I'm glad that you are not answering the grits question, because I think my heart would break right now if you told me that you were eating it with sugar. So we're fine. We're good there.
I think we're good. We're good. We're good. Just not eating it enough.
Yes, I'm fine with that. With a good rap lyric, with a good bowl of grits, it's a good rap lyric. I'm curious for a song lyric. I'll give you a little wiggle room. What's one of your favorites and why?
Yeah, well, first of all, I have 2 children and a husband who love rap music, so I'm totally letting down my family. The first thing I think of, actually, it's kind of a funny answer, is my name's Dolly. It's my real name, and so I grew up with this song, "Hello, Dolly," that was bigger then than it is now, that everyone used to always sing to me. And growing up, I kind of hated it, and then now I kind of love that I have my own theme song. And if you listen to the words, it is the song that puts me at ease when I feel unsettled. And the words are, "Hello, Dolly, you're back where you belong. We need your voice." Like, it's an incredibly beautiful song that you could put anybody's name in. And so that's my song. "You're back where you belong."
I love that so much, and that is a real flex. Having a song.
Right?
I don't know that I will ever get that opportunity, but I'm glad that you get to experience that.
You never know, Minda. Someone may write a song for you.
You never know. But I love that so much. And my last question, which I can't wait for your answer, is everybody watching is a leader. They don't have to wait for someone to tap them on the shoulder. They don't have to wait for the performance review. We all get to activate our leadership right this second. What's one thing that you would tell everybody what they can do to make the workplace better than we found it?
Yeah, I think it's be goodish. If there isn't a joke that you used to think was funny that you don't think is funny anymore, a TV show that you used to think was funny that you don't think is funny anymore, you're not growing. So what do you understand better about the world and how you impact others? What do you understand better today than you did before? That's a good sign, not a bad sign.
I love that so much. Let us all this week, as you're going into the week, can we be goodish? Can we please? 2 things I'm challenging you on. Pick up a more just future, and let's be goodish, because God knows every space needs us all to be a little bit better than we started.
It's the truth.
Well, Dolly, I just appreciate your work. I appreciate your voice, how you show up, and I'm excited for this book to be out, and I know it's going to change hearts and minds and spaces and places. So thank you for joining us.
Minda, thank you. Thank you for being the bright light you are in the world. You lead us all. Thank you.
Thank you. That means so much. All right, we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Oh man, that show just like did my heart so good. Put it in the chat if you got so much out of it. I know that you did. Please tag somebody on LinkedIn so that they can be goodish too, and they can learn how they can pick up a more just future, because clearly if we want a more just future, we're going to have to do some things differently. So it's at that time of the show where we do our affirmation. I'm going to bring Mike up to the stage so we can close out, so that you can add some more goodish to your day. Hey, Mike, how are you?
Hey, Minda, what's going on?
Good. Wasn't that a great show?
Amazing. It does your heart well, right?
It does. It does. What do you got for us?
Our October affirmation, as many of you know, is I'm not too proud to ask for help. And it goes right along with the show theme and Dolly's book, where we get to a point sometime in our lives where we don't have the answers to everything, where we don't know about our future. We don't know whether our work career is good or bad. We don't know if we're stalling or what's going on. And sometimes we just need to ask for help. Sometimes we need to vent. Sometimes we need to talk to someone, and not being too prideful to ask for help. Have you ever been, I'll use this example. Have you ever been at a place where you were like, had a bunch of groceries in your hand and you used like all of your fingers to get them in? Like you were like, I'm going to be, I'm going to be Superwoman. I'm going to be Superman. I'm just going to do one trip from the car. Maybe if you live in a cold climate like myself, or it was super hot. You just like used the strength of God, and you went from the car, you went from the bus, and just like got all the groceries. And then you set them down and you were like, man, my hands are jacked up now. Man, I'm wore out now. If I would have just, but you didn't want to, mess with the person on the couch or ask your child or ask your spouse. You wanted to do it yourself to save time or to save effort or to save someone's feelings. But many hands make light work. And that's a true statement. So if you would have asked for help, you may have not had carpal tunnel, right? You may have not had your wrists may have not flared up, because the doctor said you should be doing that anyway. So all those things that you struggled with because you didn't ask for help, somebody would have got up, they would have said, oh yeah, I'll help you, no problem. And then you would have saved all that time. And then once you get the groceries in, you don't want to bother anybody. So you put them up and you're tired and you're like, what if you would have just asked for help? It's the simple things like that. Sometimes we need to ask for help. I know last week, Minda, you explained not to become dependent. And that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying to become dependent. And Minda made some good points about, don't be lazy and dependent. I need help like that, and put your hands up and surrender. But what we're talking about, and what Minda explained last week, was asking for help in the appropriate times where you need help. You don't always have to be a superhero. Sometimes people respect you more and can connect to your humanity if you ask them for help, because people want to help. When it becomes we instead of me, then you have a team around you. Don't be too prideful to ask for help, everybody.
You were spitting all the bars, Michael. Thank you for sharing that and reminding us that as we go into this new week, that we don't have to do it all ourselves. There are certain things, as you're telling that that anecdote, I was thinking the last time I tried to take all the groceries in the house, I ended up dropping one of the bags and spilled like half my groceries over the floor. And so I was so mad, right? But I had to be mad at myself because I was trying to hold 100 bags in my hand, right? Now I have juice all over the floor and candy rolling across the floor, and my dog Boston is trying to get to it, and now I'm like frazzled, right? so I could have asked for some help, right? And so thank you for reminding us that simple yet profound piece of advice going into the week, going into the rest of the year, because those little modifications to our life will make a difference. All right. So thank you for that. We hope you enjoyed today's show. Make sure you share it. Thank you for joining us, and keep securing your seat. We'll see you next week.